Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to today's segment on Muslim Network TV. I'm your host, Edward Ahmed Mitchell. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be discussing something that is, very serious, very important, and very relevant to the world that we're living in right now, and that is the Bosnian Genocide. We are marking this week the anniversary of the Srebrenica Genocide, in which 8,000 or more Muslim men and boys were massacred, were murdered, were slaughtered because of the very fact that they were Muslim Bosnian, as part of the broader Bosnian genocide perpetrated by Serbian forces in the 1990s. To discuss what happened there, how it happened, why it happened, what the impact has been, not only on Bosnia, but the world itself and how we talk about human rights and genocide, and also the state of Bosnia right now, whether or not there's an ongoing threat of denial of further violence. To discuss these and other matters, I want to bring on our special guest right now. We're very happy to welcome Sister Selma Porca, who was born in Bosnia. During the aggression on Bosnia, Selma and her family became refugees. They spent most of the war in Sarajevo while it was under siege from Serb forces. In 1999, they were able to immigrate to the United States, where Selma attended the University of Washington. She holds a bachelor's of business administration with a major in accounting and a master's of professional accounting with a major in tax. Her experiences as a refugee contributed greatly to her community activism and her unwavering commitment to social responsibility. She has served and currently serves on the board of several nonprofit organizations. Selma's also worked in the public accounting sector for over a decade, between PwC and Deloitte. Many of you may know that company. In April last year, she decided to leave the public accounting world when she accepted the position of executive director at the Congress of Bosniaks of North America. And she appears today for us on behalf of that organization. We're very happy to have her here. Assalamu alaikum, Selma. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam, Edward. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, I know this is a very serious and difficult topic. You lived it. Your family lived it, alhamdulillah, survived it, and yet, so many did not. We want to remember them today and learn the lesson. So let me start, Selma, by asking you, if you can, give us a bit of an education. As you know, this happened back in the 1990s. Many people, including many Muslims, were not alive when this happened and have only read about it in history books or in Wikipedia and may not really understand the breadth of what happened to Bosnian Muslims during this genocide. Can you just tell us, high level, what happened during the Bosnian genocide, what led to it, and what happened in particular during the genocide in Srebrenica?
Yes, absolutely, Edward. First of all, thank you for giving us a platform to talk about this very important issue. As you know, yesterday, July 11th of 2023, was 28 years since 8,372 men and boys were systematically murdered in Srebrenica, and it was simply because they were Muslim. The bodies are still being found, exhumed, identified, and buried. Yesterday, 30 more victims were laid to rest, and one of the young men named Halil, who was only 19 years old, was buried in the form of one bone, because that is all his family was able to find of him, unfortunately. Srebrenica was a culmination of killings, exterminations, rape, torture, and other war crimes and crimes against humanity that occurred all around Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia was under an unfair and an unjust arms embargo by the international community and could not defend itself, while Serbia and Croatia, the two main aggressors, were being armed by their various allies, and in turn sending arms and supporting the nationalist Bosnian Croat and Bosnian Serb forces to perform an aggression on the Bosniaks in Bosnia and Herzegovina, who were primarily Muslim. It was really a David and Goliath situation, but Bosnia prevailed, and just like it has many times before, under similar circumstances, it exists today as a sovereign country. But unfortunately, by the time the international community decided to step in to end the war, it was too late for Srebrenica and over 100,000 plus others that were dead around the country.
So, look, I think you noted earlier in the discussion the importance of how we describe this, right? That yes, it was mass murder. Yes, it was a massacre, but it was more than that. Can you tell us about why it's so important to describe this incident in the correct way and what happened? I mean, we've seen some of the pictures, the video, but it was literally, to my understanding, men and boys being lined up in front of open graves. And just like you saw in the Holocaust, just murdered at large because of their identity. Tell us about why language is so important and how we describe this.
I think oftentimes in the culture of denial, we see aggressors trying to change the way that we talk about these issues. They want to minimize their own crimes in order to protect themselves and what occurred during that time. Oftentimes, you will hear Srebrenica referred to as a massacre rather than the legal term genocide, which actually has legal consequences. Same thing with crimes against humanity and war crimes. So we want to make sure that any time that we are talking about these issues, in order to counter the denial, which is at the highest levels that we have seen since the end of the war, we talk about it using the correct terminology. It was a genocide. It was a crime against humanity. It was war crimes that happened all around Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I think, that is how we as every individual can counter what we are seeing happen in Republika Srpska and in Serbia, countries and Serbia as a country, the Republika Srpska as an entity in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We see leadership in both areas talking about it, denying what happened, calling it a massacre, calling it a civil war, when really it was an aggression, and it was an aggression because these people were Muslim.
So next question to you, Selma, is there a danger of that denial leading to something like this happening again? Is there concern that violence could flare up again? Or, is that a far off idea because of the presence of peacekeepers and international community and all that stuff? Is there some concern that something like this could happen again?
There is an absolute concern. I think that concern is higher now today than it has been in the last 30 years. Unfortunately, the force that is on the ground at the moment, the U4 that is there, is not nearly sufficient to stop something like this from happening again. That is one of the things that we really need to raise alarm about, that but the Balkans are currently very unstable with the war in Ukraine, with Russia sort of encroaching into the European Union, that the Balkans will be the next place that will spark the fire, if you will, and God forbid it happens. But the situation is very grave at the moment, especially with denial at the levels that it is. Without acceptance of truth, there is no reconciliation. And if you have aggressors equating their victims with themselves and celebrating war criminals and people who exterminated men, like you said, like they were sheep for slaughter, throwing them into mass graves. And then not only that, Edward, but also wanting to cover up their crimes so much that they move those bodies using excavators to secondary and tertiary graves so that they could not be discovered, which is why you have Rahmetli Halil, who has one bone that was found and is being buried. And so these are awful, awful crimes. This was the second, the worst crime against humanity on European soil since the Holocaust. And it's something that we need to be talking about. And it's something that was targeted against majority Muslims. There were others, of course, in this, non-Serb cleansing campaign, if you will, including Jews and Roma and Croats. But the majority of the people that were killed and that this was designed against were Muslims. And this was why there were mass rapes. There were rape camps. We know that, that is a weapon of war. Rape is a weapon of war, demeaning, undermining women. And this happened all over Bosnia and Herzegovina. Unfortunately, Srebrenica was the culmination. And it was then that the international community decided to say enough after over 100,000 were already dead.
Yeah. So as the leader of this, important organization of Bosnian Americans and others, what impact did this have on the Bosnian community's trajectory? You have many Bosnians here in the United States, other parts around the world. I mean, this was I think, a life-changing event for that community. And yet, alhamdulillah, you all have, by the grace of Allah, been resilient. You're still here. You have your own country. You've succeeded in many ways in the United States. Can you tell us a bit about how the Bosnian community has managed to survive and rebuild to some extent after someone tried to literally exterminate from the face of the earth?
Yeah, so I think what the aggressor didn't realize was wherever we went, we sort of took root and we bettered every place we went to, and we became active citizens and business owners and very integrated into the societies that we live in. We have very, very well established Bosniak American communities across the country who are influential, who are working with their legislators on getting things done for the Bosniak American community. We have a huge population of people who are really committed to remembrance. And I think that's one of the things that I really want to highlight here is, the importance of remembrance. We firmly believe that the power of remembrance is a means to confront the past, heal wounds, and build a better future. I mean, this is why each year we all pay tribute to the victims of the Srebrenica Genocide. In every community across the country that is part of the Islamic community, you know, everyone's sort of oriented around their local community, which is typically the foundation of it is the mosque, right? Because that was what was established when a lot of us came over here, was first sort of a religious foundation. And from there, we built civic organizations and cultural organizations. But I think every single community, whether they're civic or religious, in one way or another, does something to commemorate the Srebrenica genocide. And this year, actually, the Congress of Bosniaks in North America launched a youth remembrance project where we encouraged youth from every single one of those communities, excuse me, to go out there and educate the American communities about what happened in Srebrenica and why it's important today. Brother Edward, you know that there's a rise in far nationalism or far right ideologies and ultra nationalism in this country. We also know that the killings in Srebrenica and the killings in Bosnia inspired the Christchurch shooting in New Zealand, the first live stream shooting ever in the history, which then inspired other live stream shootings. These are things that seem very far-fetched and distant from us in the distant past and 3,000 miles away, if you will, but they are relevant to us here today more than you can imagine. And so I think the more we talk about it, the Bosniak American community is committed to it. Every community in every city does something every year to educate. We are really putting our foot down with the Youth Remembrance Project, working with legislators, talking about the importance of remembrance. I think the more we can involve communities outside the Bosniak American community, that is the merrier, the better, right? The further we can reach with our message of peace, of coexistence, of respecting one another, of respecting each other's differences, and, you know, even helping push those changes in Bosnia. I mean, as you know, today, discrimination is rampant. Not everyone can be president in Bosnia and Herzegovina because of the way the constitution is currently structured. So there's so much work to do. But, you know, the Bosniak American community, I think, is leading the way, and I am proud to be part of it.
Alhamdulillah, absolutely. Tell us, where can we go to learn more about the work of the Bosniak Congress, the website, or anything you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to www.bosniak.org. That's BOSNIAK. And check out our work there. We also have a Facebook page, a Twitter page, an Instagram, a LinkedIn page. We're sort of trying to be everywhere, reaching as far as we can. And that's why I'm here today.
And we thank you for joining us, Selma, and we appreciate you being here. And we know it's a difficult thing to discuss. May Allah grant the highest rank of paradise to all the Muslims who are victims of the genocide, and protect our community and all communities from ever experiencing anything like that. Again, let us really mean when we say never again. For anyone. So thank you, Selma. Inshallah, we look forward to having you back in the future. In the meantime, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Thank you very much.
And thank you all for joining us for this important discussion. Again, make dua for the brothers and sisters of Bosnia who suffered that horrific crime against humanity. And may Allah protect the Ummah and protect everyone from experiencing such injustice. Thank you for joining us today. We'll talk to you next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.